mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for life. We won't live in the past. We're making it last. It's time for another conversation. Welcome to Making It Last podcast, where it's all about helping us to have better relationships, not just with ourselves, with other people. I'm Noreen Daly, and this time around, I have Patrick Richard Garcia. He's a two-time international best-selling author. He is a speaker and a learning disability champion. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you, Noreen, for having me here.
Now, what we're going to be unpacking this time around is what is the number one problem men still face today?
I think in my personal experience, it's really just being being open and vulnerability. I believe for a lot of men, it's very touchy for some of them because they think it will demine masculinity. But if anything,
Mm,
it can open more upon a bit more on their softer side, which a lot of times we tend not to do it because we're mainly designed for how I see it to be
mhm,
very up there upbringing assertive. But then, of course, obviously there does where there has to be some kind of tone down side, in a way that they can still be approachable. That's how I see it because of the way things now. We need to adapt to certain environments, certain
mhm.
uh, circumstances. So I believe that that needs to happen, or else we're still following the old ways, and it will not help us as an overall society and human race to to still think a certain way
Okay.
and figure out what works.
All right. So before we unpack it a little bit, though, being open, being vulnerable for you means what?
I think being open and vulnerable is really expressing emotions and feelings without even thinking about the repercussions. I believe a
Okay.
lot of times, I think depends on what you're opening up to. If
Mm-hmm.
it's sharing about like a loss or grief, that's totally different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Obviously, if you're sharing like more intimate things, there is certain people, certain guidelines on how to approach it.
Okay.
Because now it can be used as a very consequential backlash. We
Mm-hmm.
would never know because um, any kind of any kind of information that could be used to leak out, it's very personal. So it's just really being mindful of who you share with and what's the intention of it. I think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times when we just share and been open, uh, the emotional side really comes out,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're not understanding why we're feeling this way or how it's being used. But it's really just understanding how we can channel that and really use it as part of our um, repertoire towards growth
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and connecting with people. So that's how I see it.
Okay. How did you get to this point where you, in your mind, you're saying, I believe this is the number one problem for men? How did you get to this point?
I would say it's a combination of personal experiences. I'm currently married with my wife. I had different partners from this point,
Mm-hmm.
and then learn from my dad. He's not a very verbal speaker himself.
Mm-hmm.
He's more of an action speaks words per se, so that's a bit different for me. But then I learned like the very cliche and very out there common the five love languages
Okay.
concept. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where I understood it more. Um, However, I'm still doing the grasp of this really unhealed trauma. I think that's a big thing that we need to do every day.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of work where it's an ongoing process. I believe it will never leave us.
True.
It's a part of our
True.
lives, and it's really a part of the lesson to bring in. And it's really amazing of just really doing some kind of deep work involved.
Mm-hmm.
And for some men, they think it's not important. But if anything,
Okay.
it's really essential as a part of everyday life to just really understand where these feelings come from, why we feel this way, why do these things happen to us,
Okay.
and the lessons to take away from that. And by just keeping track of that, I
Mm-hmm.
believe that'll help us to move forward and really use it as opportunities to do other things that could have held us back to do um, that we wish to say and do.
Okay. I'm glad you said that. The whole idea of doing the deep work, because for you to be open, there's a certain level of self-awareness that you need to have. What do you think can be done? Or let me backtrack a bit. And I don't think it's just any one culture, because right throughout, I think men have been socialized to think that they shouldn't show their feelings and they shouldn't do this because then it might not make them seem manly. Yes? What then do you think can be done for men to now recognize that it is okay? It's okay to show your feelings. It's okay to be open. It's okay to be vulnerable, because then, your relationships will be healthier and better. What do you think can be done regarding that?
Hmm. I believe it's just still being character, still being truly who as a visual as a man.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the main thing.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's just adding that as an asset. If anything, being open really helps us uh to um to really see how we react to many different things because
Okay.
when we have control of our emotions, which eternally it's still a very difficult thing for some or majority of men to handle. I
Mm-hmm.
believe it's really just looking at okay, how can I deal with these? But because when it comes to let's say very intensive situations, could be grief, trauma, could be
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
loss of a career, business. It could be anything that could cause a huge amount of stress.
Mm-hmm.
And without knowing how to handle them, it can trigger these emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Like no matter what can be done. And it's just really looking at okay, how can I handle myself and really know that okay, I can trust myself to be still calm and collective while I'm dealing with this. And then that's where when you're calm collective and handling
Mm-hmm.
that part and still being expressive, I think that's very powerful that when we're calm collective and things and a lot of stuff coming at us, it's really powerful to know that we can just uh don't take it personal, which I
Mm-hmm.
believe a lot of men still do take personal.
Yeah.
It's part of that ego part. That's a very in-depth discussion there.
Mm-hmm.
I would really know that it's just really having that mindset to just say it's okay. It's not about me. It's just about what's happening around me, what I feel, and what's happening around me, and just knowing that I can handle this. Which is the ownership, even though it's not your fault or someone else's fault. It's about taking ownership of everything that happens to us. No matter what it is.
Why is it men are so resistant to being open and being vulnerable? That's what we're unpacking, and we're going to continue the conversation just after we take a break and get a word from our partners.
I was the person who the teacher would always call on to read aloud in class, and that traveled with me until whenever. But if you took away the paper, if you took away the book, I would freeze. I would die right on the spot. Let me introduce you to my 17, say 18-year-old self. Good with content if I'm to read. However, if I was to ever express my thoughts without writing them on paper, it was no good. Noreen was the one who recognized my flaw, but she didn't leave it there. She led me along the journey of developing my communication skills. She allowed me to know how to critically think on the spot, but not only that, how to arrange my thoughts logically so that I can come across as persuasive in my argument.
Langdo Language Institute was created to meet your language and communication needs. All of our packages were created just for you. We are passionate about language and dedicated to your success. We offer the CSEC English program, the Study Buddy program, the Get Ahead with English program, and the Business Communication program. Contact us at 767-285-0938 or email us at landolanguage@gmail.com, because the real question is, how can we help you?
You can't live your best life without a healthy immune system. Boost your immune system the delicious way with Zappy's organic juices and punches. Made from local produce with zero added sugar, our juices cleanse and revitalize your body as they boost your natural immunity. Try our delicious flavors. Beat It, Berry Bomb, Get Fresh, Ton Up, and Island Splash. Find us on Instagram at Zappy's Organics or call or send a WhatsApp message at 1-876-779-8910 to order today. That's 1-876-779-8910. Zappy's Organic Juices and Punches. Live your best life today.
Welcome back. The fact that you came to this realization based on your own experiences, how do you think this has, well, negatively first, or maybe even positively impacted your relationships? The whole idea that you're open to being open.
I will mention the negative part first.
Okay.
I've experienced different kind of relationships. Well, mostly emotional. Like woman in my life, starting very young. I was like 18. I think it's not very young, but it's still young.
Okay.
Now I'm in my 30s. I look back and looking at, I didn't have the right, let's say, kind of men in life that can guide me through how to deal with a woman or a girl in a
Mm-hmm.
time and learning how to like court them, learning how to take care of them, learn how to reassure them. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
things I had to really learn from a lot of trial and error, which led to a lot of arguments. And
Mm-hmm.
I knew with well-being that I myself wasn't confident enough to do it, but I leaped in anyway and really figured it out. And I understood that it requires a lot of development on my end.
Okay.
But I knew I wanted to be in with someone in terms of like really growing, developing, and doing things
Mm-hmm.
together.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I knew there was a thing where like I wanted to do more of my development. But the thing is, I didn't know who to rely to because then I met a lot of people, and it's really just I don't know. I'll explain. It's more like I had this sense of where honestly it's hard not to trust everyone. It's
Mm-hmm.
just there wasn't one thing that can really lean on to in terms of someone that has experienced this.
Okay.
So in the spotlight positively, I think it took me a long time to find that kind of like mentor that has done everything.
Mm-hmm.
Even though
Mm-hmm.
they could be rich or famous or out there, I believe
Mm-hmm.
what they did is that they have really undergone a lot of transformations and tribulations that have done it. And it's really knowing how to uh, how to be very uh, congruent, not congruent, how to be consistent
Okay.
in what
Okay.
you do. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I had to send a more positive part that that I wish I had met someone earlier in my
Okay.
20s and meet them now close to my 30s. So it's really understanding the positive light to say, you know what, I'm glad I have met them now.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's really time to use what they have taught and run to me and really just apply it and just still go through the trial and error and just uh, really keep at it because if you're not trying, then it's really hard to figure out what can you do better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When you, well, you've kind of answered it, but just for reinforcement, how easy though is it for people to get to the point where they want to do that deep work and just want to say, hey, because I want my relationships to be better, to be healthier, I will literally just be open? Or do you think that people still need to some extent, especially men, be somewhat cautious in terms of who they are open with?
I would say it's still being conscious.
Okay.
We live in a world now where there's a lot of uncertainty and there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of hidden agendas, which I not never understand why a
Mm-hmm.
lot of both men and
Mm-hmm.
women, not just men, but both sides are
Sure.
really
Mm-hmm.
cautious now. It's really looking at the amount of grief and pain that's happened in the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's really looking at uh, within ourselves and just really say, okay, with this happening, I believe it's really just coming down to really looking at your past relationships, could be with romantic or platonic,
Mhm.
looking at both and seeing in the past years, okay, and say, okay, who have I really so connected with? And I believe it's really looking at everyone you've kept in touch with, and you're
Mhm.
looking at your list and contacts and people you have met, networked. It could be work or it could be your circles. And I need to just like, okay, I really need to see what kind of value they bring and what I bring.
Ah,
And if the values don't match, or let's say one or close to it, then I feel there's no point of me continuing. Which I've been still doing that work. I'm
mhm.
still looking at certain people that have been part of my life for so long and seeing the impact I had and the value that I
Mhm.
bring. If that's great, but then the person can't bring it, then I don't mind being their inspiration and being their person to reach out for wisdom. But in terms of like anything more deeper, I have to say, okay, no. There
Okay.
there's no correlation for us to be like still continuing this. And it's saddening. But
It is.
it's also part of life where we all gone through phases and transitions. And it's really amazing of how these circles get smaller, but also it gets more fulfilling. And I believe that's more the
Mhm.
work that men need to do is uh more smaller the better. And it's not more stressful to keep in touch with like 10, 20 people. I mean, it's very rare to have a group where
Mhm.
like you're very close with like 10, 15 people and you're all very close, which is very rare. I will give
Mhm.
the example like my brother, he's almost 30 and he's close with like all of his high school friends in the past. And I've truly commended him and his friends to keep in touch for so long, and they're very close still.
Mhm.
And it's phenomenal that they really that this bondness, which I believe is very uncommon.
Yeah.
Out of his friends I've seen, not many groups survive after minimum 2, 3 years after they
Yeah.
graduated. It's
Yeah.
been now 10 years and they're still together and still growing together as a group and see each other married and eventually having kids. So it's incredible. It's really cool that to see that example from them.
Mhm.
It's I'm very blessed to see that.
Okay. As we're wrapping up, I'm going to ask you the question again. And in your response, you just say why. Okay? You'll answer the question and also give me the reason, just to sum the conversation up. What is the number one problem men still face today?
To being open and vulnerable.
And you believe this is important because.
I believe it's important because that's like the base fundamental of communication and communication as a human species. I've I've looked at as without that conversation, then it'll be very difficult to start a connection, starting finding ways how to feel so connected, even though we had different views, different perspectives. But it's very essential to have that conversation to start.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing, Patrick. This was Making It Last podcast, where it's all about helping us to have better relationships, not just with ourselves, with other people. I'm Nuri Daly. Until next time.
Mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for life. We won't live in the past. We're making it.